Okay, hi y'all. We are visiting with Glenn Farr today. Glenn was born in Newberry County in South Carolina and he grew up in Little Mountain. He now resides in Irmo, a suburb of Columbia. Glenn, when did you know who you were and what was it like for you growing up in a small country town?
Well, I think I had a suspicion when I was 15. I had an inexplicable anxiety attack at school that led to a lot of therapy, but I really wasn't able to articulate what I was feeling until I was 18 to 21. And it was not a lot of fun. Of course, in the 70s, when this would have been happening to me, there were no role models. Gay was still classified as a psychiatric disorder. And when I finally told my parents what I thought was going on, their take on it was, okay, we'll take you to the doctor and get you fixed.
Yeah, that was my next question. What was the family dynamic like? Were they supportive at all? So, did you have siblings?
I have one younger brother. We were very close as children, but in teenage years, when my reality came to visit itself upon me, he and I went in totally different directions. He still has a Trans Am he bought in the 70s. I've never owned a Trans Am.
Glenn, tell us about that portrait on the wall. That's very interesting. I love it.
Well, when I was a junior in high school, we had to take the PSAT, and I was one of 5 top scorers in my class, and Newberry College at the time offered the top 5 scorers from each area high school. They gave them the opportunity to take 2 college classes during the summer before our senior year. And I'd been drawing since I was 4, and I had never even done stick figures. I thought stick figures were ridiculous even when I was 4. And so people were always encouraging me to become an artist, so I took an art course, and the professors, I had no training, and the professor told me to just bring in something I'm going to copy. So I pulled a Kent cigarette ad out of TV Guide and reproduced it in acrylic paint. And I was 17 years old, and the professor was stunned, and he kept putting a lot of pressure on me to go to USC and get an MAT in fine art, and I did start college doing that, and I was so country come to town and couldn't conceive of the way they wanted me to do things, and so after a year I quit.
That is amazing, though. That portrait is amazing, and the frame. That is, you did that.
My mother did the frame.
Really?
Yeah, I used to be able to get these kits that were made out of oak, and you could buy the different lengths for the width and the height. And she bought these, and she painted it black, and she had some gold leaf paint, and she did that.
Very
but the
nice.
painting is mine. My parents did not have a happy marriage, and there was just a lot of negativity in the environment. And it wasn't until I got out on my own in my 20s and then later moved to Columbia that I really felt freer to explore who I was.
That was my next question. How much things changed with regard to acceptance and comfortability from the time between moving to Columbia and the 40 years you've been here, 40 years or so?
Well, it still took me forever to come to terms with myself, and I didn't really do that until my mid-30s when this guy was hired at work, and he was maybe 7 years younger than I was, but he was very eager to solve his own problems, and he set his cap for me, and we wound up in a relationship. Whoa. And that's how you know, I got to be able to, I mean, we moved into the gay community together because we had an automatic ally.
Was that your first relationship?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And it was pretty rugged because, well, you know, they say your first gay relationship is doomed to fail because you have so many expectations, and that's true. Plus, he had a rage problem. And so I was seeing myself becoming, in effect, a battered spouse, and so I kicked him to the curb.
Okay, well, for inquiring minds, are you happily single now or looking for love? How's that going?
I am open if it were to happen, but unfortunately now that I'm just a couple of years shy of 70, my priority is health issues. I mean, people may look at me and think I'm healthy, but I've got a number of things going on that I have to take care of.
Okay, well, you are an integral part of the theater community here, so to ask if you're accepted may seem redundant to ask if you're accepted in the theater community, but how do you feel about
The theater community,
how
well,
do they treat you?
I was heavily involved in the community theater up through the 90s, and before I took a break. And at the time, I wasn't participating in gay life in any shape or form. I was unfortunately still saying a lot of homophobic things because I couldn't accept myself. And so I took a break, and I took a break, and when I came back, I was single, had worked out all my self-acceptance issues, and I thought, yes, I'll go back into theater because that's where all the gay men are. And almost to a fault, every show I participated in, I was the only gay man.
What?
Yes.
Are you sure you were the only?
Well, the only one that would in any way, I was the only one that was obvious and available. Let me put it that way. If there were closet cases there, I just wasn't seeing the signs.
Gotcha. So how about now? Are you out and about and comfortable in your skin and around other people?
Well, obviously, because of the show I have running this weekend,
You do have a show this weekend.
which I wrote.
Yes. What are you doing for New Year's?
What are you doing New Year's Eve?
New Year's Eve, yeah.
It is Chapin Theater Company, which is just a few miles up the road from here, has an annual short play competition. And last year I went to it, and there was this very funny segment about this gay male couple, one of whom was estranged from his mother, and his partner invites the guy's mother to Thanksgiving so they can try to patch up their relationship, and hilarity ensued. Well, Chapin Theater Company is not known for being terribly adventurous with the material they stage. So I saw that, and I went to the artistic director and I said, "What do you mean putting this gay stuff on stage?" And she looked at me like, "Huh?" I said, "Well, if I had known you were going to do that, I would have submitted something." And so this year I did, and it's not a comedy like the one from last year. And I submitted it in the mindset of, this is gay, it's very serious, there's not a bit of camp in it, I dare you to pick it. And they picked it. And so then I had to do it.
Well now, how has the reception been so far?
Opening night, I got a lot of comments. I was really concerned, positive comments. I was really concerned based on Chapin's average audience that,
which is kind of conservative.
yeah, and older,
Yeah.
and very white.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part. And so I thought, how many people are going to get up and leave? But they didn't. And I had people coming up to the lobby afterwards saying some very supportive things. One guy who I've known in local theater for about 35 years came up to me and he said, I can hear your voice in that show. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I would have known you wrote it even if your name wasn't on it." And I'm like, well, I'm not sure what that means. And I was thinking about it, well, what is my voice? And I guess what I would want my voice to be is that I tell small town LGBTQ plus stories in a way that they are universally accessible. And so far I think that's happening with this. Last night's audience didn't really give me any feedback, but still, so far, no one has gotten up and left.
Well, Well, that's good.
Yes.
That's a very good sign.
We take our little victories.
Absolutely. And just slightly shifting to a different subject, a lot of big cities, progressive cities, have places where the LGBTQ community can go for resources, advice, or even housing. In your time here in Columbia, does Columbia have anywhere where people can go for help when needed, would you say?
Well, I can't really speak about everything they offer, but there is the Harriet Hancock Center, which I don't know all that they do now. I know that they host a number of meetings for various LGBTQ plus affiliated organizations. They have a significant library of books and everything from novels to self-help books. In the 90s, I was a volunteer there for a brief period, but what they're doing now, I really don't know about. I haven't been there for a Sunday. They have Sunday potlucks for the LGBTQ plus community, and I haven't been to one of those since before the pandemic. Then there's another organization that's been around for quite a while called PALS, which is Palmetto AIDS Life Support Services, and their original mission, I believe, was to support people with HIV and AIDS. I think they're still around, but I don't really know anything more than that. But with respect to larger progressive cities, Columbia is not necessarily either one, but back in the late 90s, Columbia showed up in a ranking of top 100 towns and cities in the US for LGBTQ services.
Okay. That's good. We'll take it.
Yeah.
And I imagine you have supportive friends here. You've been here a long time.
Well, it's really interesting because I have had several periods in my life where I was very much in a Will and Grace dynamic with a supporting woman. That's happened twice. I was friends with this one woman when Will and Grace first came on the air, and I kept saying, "You've got to watch this show, it's us." And she said, "Oh, sweetie, you know I don't watch TV." And so there was the famous water bra episode in which Grace wore something to give her a fuller figure, and it was filled with water, and it burst at an art exhibit and washed all the paintings off. And so I gave my friend a video of that. And it took her 6 months to get around to watching it. And so she called one night, and I picked up the phone, and all I hear is, "Ah!" I said, "What?" She said, "This tape." And after that, whenever we would go someplace together, and she'd introduce me to some of her other friends, she would say, "This is Glenn, he's my Will." And then I have a neighbor now, and we do things like take each other to doctor's appointments, because that's what you do when you get old. And so we describe ourselves as Will and Grace, the golden years.
Nice, I like it.
But to better answer your question, during the pandemic, I connected with a guy I met at the Harriet Hancock Center maybe 10 years ago. And we reconnected at a party after everybody started getting COVID vaccinations and it was safe to congregate again. And he says, "Well, what have you been doing during the lockdown?" And I said, "I've been writing a novel." And he said, "Me too." So we started trading manuscripts, and we've been supporting each other's writing, and that has led us into bringing in a couple of other gay men in our circle. And so it's like, for the first time in a long time, I have a posse.
Okay, that is so cool.
Yeah, it is, especially when you're in your 60s and about to hit 70.
Absolutely.
Because especially for men, it's hard to make friends when you get older. Especially because men die earlier. And so there aren't necessarily that many of us still around, not to mention gay men.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you, Glenn. Thank you for giving us a glimpse into your life and your home